This is a good one for you now. I'm going to share this with you. I thought about it this morning. I was actually thinking about this morning when I woke up. I remember when we were doing our training, one of the things they asked us was, do you remember any time in your life going right back along when you actually made a difference, or you said your voice was heard for the first time and you stood up and be counted, as they called it years ago. So I remember sitting there thinking, Jesus, I can't remember anything like that. But actually what did come up for me was, when we were at school years ago, we went from national school, all girls school, into a co-ed school where there were boys and girls. And during the breaks, we'll say between classes, that time you went from one class to the next and the teachers changed. And there was a young fella inside in the class, Willie was his name. I don't need to give his full name. I think I've done this video before and I mentioned him. And actually, do you know what? He was as wild as a cat. And every time that the teachers went out, he used to get down on the ground and he'd be kicking the living daylights out of all the lads. And I remember sitting there. Now, as I said to you before so many times in this, I was as quiet as a mouse. But I remember sitting there looking around the class thinking, is anybody going to stop him from doing this? Is this the way it's going to be? Like, that this fella's going to be allowed to disrupt the whole place while the teacher's gone? So anyway, I remember this urge came over me and I jumped up and I said, sit down, I said, and cop yourself on. And all of a sudden he just stopped. He stopped. Poor old Willie stopped and he sat into his seat and he just sat there and said nothing. And they all just sat there. And I thought, oh my God. Now, I tried it a few times after that, and in the end he got sick of me and he continued on being a typical wild young fella that was just mad for energy release, or whatever you might call it at the time. I came from a family of 4 boys. So to me, like, it was just like, come on, cop on. But I suppose in that moment, what I'm sharing with you this morning, and I want you to stay with this because maybe you can remember a time, it felt so different in me because I was so quiet. Like, I wouldn't be seen from one end of the day to the other in my mind. I was just invisible. And in that moment, I became visible, really visible in my own life. Now, I was only 12 or 13 at the time, I remember. But it really struck me that I can be seen here and I'm not scared to be seen. So if there's anything like that for you this morning, maybe today is the day for tapping into that and thinking, I have my place at the table, I have my right to be here, and I have my voice. I leave you that.